Hi, everyone, and welcome to Indie Underdogs. My name is Mike Harvat, and I'm a musician from Omaha, Nebraska. This is the first episode of a monthly audio podcast highlighting lesser-known artists and bands. It's my attempt at being a musical curator, shining the spotlight on music that deserves a wider audience. A little bit about myself. I'm a worship leader, a singer-songwriter, and up until recently, I played in a band called Flight Metaphor. Before that, I was in a band called The Perfect Paradox, too. So for the first time in over 15 years, I'm relaunching my career as a solo artist. With that in mind, I'll be upfront with you about the fact that this podcast kinda serves a dual purpose for me. Not only do I want you to check out the amazing bands that I cover on this podcast, I'm also kinda hoping that you'll check out my music too. If you're at all curious about the man behind the microphone, head over to MikeHarvat.com or follow me on social media at Mike Harvat. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. Okay, that's enough about me. Let's talk about Names Without Numbers. Names Without Numbers has been one of my favorite bands ever since I was in high school, and they just so happen to be a good group of guys too. I had a great time talking to them about their early years, some fun memories from the stage and in the studio, and their breakup and eventual reunion that would culminate in a brand new album. It released just a few months ago, and it's called Silos and Smokestacks. But before we talk about the new stuff, let's go back to the very beginning and hear Names Without Numbers' story in their own words. I am here with Ryan and Dave from Names Without Numbers. Welcome, guys.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's cool to be on.
Glad to have you guys. So we have been colleagues and friends for the better part of the last couple of decades at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah,
but
15, 20 years.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, I'd like to just get a little bit of an overview of the band. So you guys formed in the late 90s, and you've been making music for most of the time ever since then. But for somebody who's never heard you guys before, give me like the elevator pitch. If somebody asked you, so what do you guys sound like? What would you say?
We are Jimmy Eat World crossed with the Foo Fighters. That's usually the go-to bands that I use.
Okay.
Yeah, those are kind of the two go-to, like Ryan said. You know, hopefully people have heard of the Foo Fighters. And you know, most people these days have heard of Jimmy Eat World. But sometimes I'll throw in, you know, like old school Weezer, you know, a little bit of old school Blink-182. You know, just to kind of give them just a reference of what ballpark, you know, what we do.
Yeah, the genre I usually use to describe the type of music you guys are making is power pop, but nobody knows what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got some heavier rock elements, but there's such an emphasis on the melody and the song over and above just rocking out, you know?
Totally. And can we take a second to do a moment of silence for, well, I can't even remember his name, but Fountains of Wayne. Like, that was, if you're talking power pop, like, that's one of the power pop bands that you...
Right.
What's his name? Schlesinger? Adam Schlesinger?
Yeah.
Just passed away this last week. Yeah, that sucks. But, yeah, that's another band that, like, was really influential and one of the bands that, like, has that sound that we sort of emulate.
Absolutely. All right, so take me back to, what was it, 98, I think, is when you guys formed?
It's probably really close, 99, the end of 98, because I think our first EP came out, I want to say 2000.
Okay. So before Names Without Numbers, there was Life 9, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just before Names was Life 9. So it was essentially the core band with Ryan and I, but we had a different lead vocalist.
Okay.
And
yeah, I think think Nickelback in front of Jimmy Eat World. Like he was his like very growly voice. So yeah, it was a different sound.
When we first started Life 9, we were definitely not playing Creed type music, but we were definitely more modern alt rock, and so it worked for a while. But as a band and as songwriters, Ryan and I were really just kind of going in a different direction than our vocalist was. And we were quickly becoming Creed mixed with Pearl Jam and Lit.
Oh, okay.
And
so you wanted to take that in a different direction then, is what I'm hearing.
yeah, it just stylistically wasn't working out, so
gotcha.
The vocalist had to go.
On that first EP, you have a different lead singer than your subsequent releases. So this is a different guy then, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, I'll let Ryan kind of speak to that.
Yeah, we tried out a couple singers. Like, after our original singer, we were like, yeah, this isn't working out. Like, it's not our thing anymore. And there were some personal things, too. So we went separate ways, and we were like, well, let's try out some different singers, and they weren't working out. So we were like, well, which one of us is going to sing? Because, bringing somebody else in isn't going to work. It hasn't worked through these tryouts and through these periods. So it ended up being our drummer was writing all the lyrics because he was very insightful and is a great lyricist. So it kind of fell to him, and he was doing a fine job by all accounts. But it wasn't like live. It didn't really translate because back in the day, like, it wasn't as sophisticated technology. Like the sound guys were always pissed off at us because like there was so much like bleed through. Like when you're hitting the cymbals, especially, like they bleed into the microphone that's trying to pick up the lead vocalist, and he's trying to crank up because in the mix, like, you want the lead vocalist to be the loudest thing, and if the cymbals are coming through there, it just doesn't sound great, and there's feedback all the time. So it was very frustrating for all of us. I thought he did a great job, but so that was sort of what we landed on was John, our drummer, was going to be the lead vocalist, and
don't say just to be clear, like, our drummer was singing and playing drums at the same time, and like Ryan said, not only was it just kind of a sound nightmare, but even long term, it really wasn't sustainable just from breath support.
Sure.
Just from the basics of singing, with breath support, he's exerting all his energy into the drums, and there wasn't nothing left for him to sing and, be in sing the best. So something was going to suffer. The drums was going to suffer, or the vocals were going to suffer. And, yes, but the first EP that we put out, he was singing on it.
So then, how did Ryan come to be the lead singer? Did you guys just draw straws or flip a coin or what?
Kind of similar story, like you said. We did try out a few of our friends, played some shows with a few different vocalists, and at the end of the day, nothing really clicked. The chemistry wasn't there. Maybe some stylistic things that we were looking for wasn't there, and at the end of the day, we're just like, well, Ryan was just like, well, I guess I'll do it.
Yeah. It's more reluctance.
And he's been doing it ever since.
Yeah. More reluctance than anything else. Like, you know, like I was saying before, like, chemistry is a big thing, and we were trying out singers, and they weren't, I don't know, we were four best friends playing in a band, and bringing somebody else in, they have to really fit in order for it to work. And, you know, at some point I was like, well, you know, in order for this to work, I'm just gonna, you know, somebody's gonna have to suck it up. And John was like, I'm out, I'm not doing this anymore. So, you know, it's either me or Dave, pretty much. So that's why I was like, well, I guess I will.
I guess I'll do it. That's great. So, I'm just curious, because we're talking about you guys being a band, at this point, you're into your third decade of being a band when you think about it. What was it like being a band in the late 90s and the early 2000s? Like, what sticks out to you as unique about that time in your band's history?
That's a great question. I mean, the very first thing that I always think of was just simply the music scene back then. You know, maybe it just comes with age, you know, but it's definitely not what it was. I think just the culture of music, the support for music, you know, everybody was friends. To me, it just doesn't seem kind of like that anymore. I mean, the music scene is great nowadays. You know, don't get me wrong. There's tons of just amazing bands in this town, but there was just something special about that decade of early 2000s bands. And I mean, there was really genre-defining moments, I think, in musical history just during that time.
Yeah, I don't know if anything sticks out necessarily. I mean, because that's like, at the time, that's what you did as a musician. Like, you got a band, you got a bunch of guys together, you played, you know, strings and drums. But looking back, like, I think that's where it's the profound difference is, like, now it's all electronic. And if you want to, now you record all by yourself as a solo artist, and you go tour as yourself with 8 other guys that you've kind of piped into this recording that you're playing with, and it works. Like, back then, that didn't work. Like, so it was a different time. Like, you know, you had 4 musicians that were on stage, and nothing pre-recorded, or piped. I mean, it was different. I mean, so that's what kind of sticks out to me, like the difference between what we're doing now and what people are doing now on the scene versus what was happening back then.
Yeah, sure. Very, very grassroots, you know, handing out flyers, advertising, putting up posters all over town. Some of that stuff still happens, but I mean, there was no Facebook back then. Yeah. And, you know, there was MySpace kind of crept in there towards the end.
MySpace. Do we still have a MySpace page?
We do.
I think everybody still has a MySpace page, even though nobody's using MySpace. I actually just went back in the other day and pulled out a bunch of old show poster images to throw on my band's Facebook.
I did that several years ago. I went in and I grabbed all the images and I saved them.
That's great. Yeah, I don't even remember the last time I printed off a flyer for a show. I mean, it was a different time. But anyway, getting back on track with names specifically. So you guys kind of grinded out for a couple years and quickly move on from the EP, and then you guys put out a new EP, a split with Analog, Names Without Numbers versus Analog, and there's 2 songs on that release. Do you want to tell me about how that came to be? I know that there was a 3rd song recorded during those sessions as well.
Yeah, so after we decided to have Ryan sing lead, you know, we were writing songs just like crazy, and me being kind of like the metalhead in the band, anybody that knows us knows that I'm kind of the hardcore guy. But the nice thing about it, like the hardcore scene really accepted us, so we were just really good friends with a lot of the heavier bands. Analog was one of them, good friends of ours, and we just decided, hey, let's do a split EP. They had some songs ready to go. We had some songs ready to go. And we just kind of threw it out there just for some exposure and to support one another.
Yeah, and you could, like, there was a lot of that happening. I mean, you can spread production costs a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to pay for all the production costs yourself if you have another band that you're kind of going in with, if you will. And we didn't have a lot of money, so we were like, well, let's do a few songs and have them do a few songs so we have enough for a product.
Yeah. That's another differentiation between music today and music back then is bands had CDs to sell at their shows.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, we still do.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We just don't sell as many anymore.
That's what I appreciate.
It's a niche market.
I'm glad that I have the new Names Without Numbers CD, because if you guys went the vinyl only route, I would have been like, well, I guess I'm doing a download.
Vinyl costs too much. We'd love to do it, but maybe someday.
Yeah, so anyway, but back to we did the first EP and we recorded 3 songs, but we had one of them that we were working with Tooth and Nail. They picked up on a sampler of theirs. So that's why we released 2 of them on the EP, and one of them went to Tooth and Nail at the time.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that was I'm Your Biggest Fan. Was it Volume 2?
Yep, Volume 2.
So if any of you guys are going through the bargain bin at some, I don't know, Hastings doesn't exist anymore, but someplace that resells CDs, you might be able to find it. I have actually been buying up a bunch of old Tooth and Nail releases through Facebook groups lately. It's been pretty fun revisiting all the albums that I wanted but didn't want to spend $18 for back when they were selling for that much at Parables.
I have them. I have them all.
That's great. So how did that come about? I mean, were you guys being courted by Tooth and Nail? Were you kind of shipping it out to a bunch of different labels? Tell me about that process.
Courted. I mean, I don't know if that's the word for it, but when we recorded the 3 songs, like again, 2 went on with the analog split, and then 1 went on the Tooth and Nail sampler. We were shopping it. I sent it out to all kinds of different labels. We just happened, across on our journey, run into Chad Johnson, who was one of the biggest A&R reps that Tooth and Nail has ever seen. He's responsible for some of the biggest bands that label has ever seen. So kind of consolidating the story with that is we met Chad back when he owned Take Hold Records.
Okay.
And then he liked us back then, which was really cool. But we kept that relationship going. But Brandon Jones, which actually is the owner of Indie Vision Music, was just simply a fan of us. To be honest, I'm not sure how he found us, but he did. But he just really liked us. And when he found out that we had some material recorded and we were really trying to get something out, he offered to put that song onto the Tooth and Nail sampler.
That's awesome.
Waking from the Coma is the name of the song.
I turned my back just once. For once I didn't care. Heart was never there till the knife cut through. And now I lie so still. No one detects a sound. Screams within my head, all louder now it's true. Blood is on my hands, but I can't understand why the color seems to fade. Blood is on my hands, but I can't understand why the color seems to fade.
For folks who are not familiar with Indie Vision Music, I'm sure we'll talk about them later when we talk about your new album, but back in the day, as just a Christian music fan in general, I kind of saw Indie Vision Music as like the underground complement to the Jesus Freak Hideout, if anybody's familiar with that website.
Yeah.
Kind of covering more of the like alternative indie bands that were, not the Supertones.
They wanted to expose people to really good independent artists, smaller startup artists, but also just good music with a positive message, bands just in general, whether they were big or whether they were small. And so that was really how they started. And then along the way, they picked up some bands and kind of helped release their records under their label name.
Awesome. So it's around this time that I discovered Names Without Numbers. I think I can't put my finger on the first time I saw you guys. It might have been the Brookside Battle of the Bands when you guys were playing there, and I think Better in 11, who was playing their final show as No Other Reason that night.
Right.
I think that might have been the show where I first saw Names play. Or it could have... No, I'm pretty sure that's it, because I remember having a conversation with you guys at Lifelight, and I think that's where I bought the Names Without Numbers versus Analog EP. Nice. And I was asking you guys if you were ever going to put out a full length, and you guys laughed at me.
Yeah, we're a bunch of jerks.
bunch of jerks.
But
That's who we
even
are.
Back then, like, I kind of got the impression that, like, it was like, oh, okay, I'm having my eyes opened to the world of independent artists. And when you ask those kinds of questions, like, when you guys gonna record a full album? Usually the answer is, like, when we have money. I don't know, someday.
Yeah. That was, I think, probably where the laugh came from was, as soon as we have money for this stuff, because this isn't cheap.
Right.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
eventually a record did come, Running Marathons, Chasing Ambulances. And what year did that come out? I can't quite place when that was released.
2003, I believe. At least that's the year that's on the CD.
Yeah.
Right on.
It's on the back, the copyright, 2003, pretty sure.
2003.
Yeah, I think that's right. And so we took those three songs that we had done, and we convinced Tooth and Nail to let us have the rights to the one song back. Because I think they were like, well, this band isn't going anywhere, and we're not going to sign them. So they can have the song back. So we got the song back as well as the other two. So we used those three, plus we recorded another 7 to have the 10 songs for Running Marathons.
Okay, awesome. And did you tell me about the recording process? Did you record the remainder of the 7 songs with the same producer, same location, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
I believe so. It was still AJ Mogus, like the Mogus brothers in Lincoln.
Yeah, we recorded all of it at back then. They were called Presto Studios in Lincoln, and it was like Ryan said, there were the Mogus brothers who kind of got their fame from Bright Eyes, Cursive, and The Faint, all the Saddle Creek artists.
Well, both of them were in Lullaby for the Working Class, right? Mm-hmm. Big Saddle Creek, like old school,
right? So everything was at the same place, but the 3 songs versus the 7 songs did have a different bass player.
Oh yeah.
Oh right, because the overarching theme of that record is kind of about the departure of your bassist.
It was, yeah. Brian was an original member. He was the 4th, and that's why the song has that title, the 4th. It's basically a tribute, like the album and that song are a tribute to him deciding that he didn't, he had higher aspirations, and he went on to law school in Boston, which is where the name of the album comes from, Running Marathons, Chasing Ambulances. So we got another bass player, and basically the whole album was a tribute to him. And the thing that sticks with me about that album, and since you mentioned like going into the studio and recording, like we were in the same studio, so they had a setup where there was like Studio A, Studio B, and obviously we were in Studio B, and in Studio A, The Faint was recording, I think it was Dance Macabre at the time, which was like a super influential album for us, afterwards, obviously, but like, they were heroes of ours, and we got to hang out with them, play video games with them in the break room, and kind of eat, food on our breaks. It was a pretty sweet, like, little thing, and that's kind of what I take away from that.
That's really
recording
cool.
session.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like one of the like Ryan said, one of the memories of just recording is again walking in. All the Faint guys are, just wrapping up their project. I walk into one of the rooms, where they were tracking bass, and there's a fork stuck in one of the speakers. And I was like, well, what happened here? Somebody just got mad and stabbed it or just messing around. They're like, no, they did it on purpose. They wanted just a real ratty, dirty, essentially a broken speaker sound.
Yeah.
And so they stuck a fork into the bass cab, right into the speaker, to achieve the sound that they were looking for.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So a little bit of history there for you.
And I think that is like right after they got their guitar player, too, because before that they were a very electronic, very keyboard-driven band. And I remember distinctly, like, their new guitar player was called Depose. I think that's what he still goes by. And just kind of meeting him, like, oh, I'm Depose. Like, I'm Ryan Cruikshank. I have 2 names. Nice to meet you, Depose.
That's great. Yeah, not to turn this episode into a crotchety old men complaining about how much things have changed type thing.
Too late.
But I mean, like, that's another striking difference between the recording industry, especially today, and the way it was back then. Like, nowadays, the thought of going out and renting a studio space and working with a producer is probably like anathema to a lot of musicians who kind of have the attitude of, hey, I'm just going to do all this stuff at home by myself. And I guess the crazy thing is a lot of musicians, with the right training, they can probably make something just as good at home.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, like Billie Eilish just created a lot of that, at their home. Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy what you can do now with technology. I mean, again, not to be the crotchety old guys, but all of the technology that was involved in the studio is now accessible at our fingertips at our own home.
Yeah.
And we recorded a lot of that stuff on like reel to reel, which
did you really? Okay. I was thinking about.
Don't even know what the heck that is.
Yeah, it was all on tape. Our first full length.
That's awesome.
Analog.
I think that there really is something special about that, though. Like, if you go back and listen to this record, folks. Where can people hear it? Bandcamp, right? Spotify, iTunes, it's all available, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much everywhere. Bandcamp, iTunes, Spotify, TikTok. I believe it's on there.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you can make your own
videos
dubs. You can do your own dance video to the Fourth or whatever.
YouTube. It's pretty much everywhere you stream music.
Okay, right on. I mean, that's a great sounding record. I think it holds up, you guys. And I'm not just saying that because we're doing an interview and I'm trying to be charitable. Like, I can put that album in right now and listen to it, and there's nothing on that record that makes me go, ooh, man, if only, I'm sure you guys have moments on the record because everybody's their own worst critic, but yeah. Yeah,
totally. I think I'm pretty proud of that album. I think there are a couple songs that I'm a little cringeworthy, but for the most part, I was proud of what we'd come up with, and I thought AJ Mogus did a great job producing. I mean, he was the engineer, but we kind of let him like have creative freedom to produce us too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think all around, I still look back at that album with a lot of fondness.
There any moments in particular that you're proud of when you throw the CD in?
Well, the one moment I can remember like distinctly from the recording session is the Fourth. We didn't want to record it. It was like a back burner. We weren't even going to put it on the album, but I was like, we have to, like, this is a great pop punk or a great pop, like power pop song with a good melody. Mm-hmm. We have to do it. And our drummer was like, no, we are not doing this.
Really?
We can't, we're never in time with this. So what I had to do was, normally when we set it up in the studio, it was always the drum and the bass, and Dave would play along just to kind of keep it all in together, cohesive. But it was mostly to lay down the bass and drum, to lay that foundation.
Sure.
So the three of them were playing, and since I wasn't playing, like I had a metronome in front of me, and I was clapping out the time. So that everyone would stay. I was like overemphasizing the clap, like to make sure everyone was in time. Like we weren't feeding a metronome into the ears because that screwed everybody up at the time.
Yeah, we did that whole record with no click.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Which you can tell now, because if you listen to it on a metronome, like if you say, okay, this song was at 110 or whatever, if you put a metronome on, it's like all over the place, timing wise.
Oh,
but
it's not that
good.
bad. It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Except for the fourth.
But it feels good.
Your clapping must have been off.
Well, yeah, maybe.
That's great.
Because I'm clapping in there just to like, I want this on the record so bad, I'm gonna like get in there and like force it over the finish line.
Throw some tea into the river to commemorate your move. But Boston's not the place for you.
What about you, Dave? Are there any songs that you're particularly proud of from that album?
I mean, speaking of the fourth, it's actually one of the only songs that we still play to this day, which is kind of funny. Ryan had to force us to kind of get it done. But honestly, I mean, Stars Between Stations. It's my favorite song on the record. I mean, it's the song that probably got us the most recognition, kind of got us a lot of attention. And to me, it's just one of those songs that was just a little bit of magic in there. I think we wrote it in the matter of about 15 minutes.
That's awesome.
It was just one of those songs that just came out. We put it all together, and it was done. It was just that easy.
That's so cool.
But yeah, being in the studio, I remember, just laying down those riffs, and it was just, I just remember having like a lot of fun doing that song.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was kind of magical. I mean, you kind of felt it when we put it together. Like Dave said, in like a matter of, I don't know, one session, we just like, oh, hey, that sounds good. I'm going to do this over top of it. You're going to do that. Oh, done. Where's rap? That's a rap. And I think it was the first song that we had decided to do after, like, I had reluctantly said, okay, I'll sing. Like, that was the first song that we had done, and we did it in like 10 minutes. We were like, hey, this is going to be easy. Like, we're going to do all these songs like this.
Yeah, I think that there's something magical about the early days of being in a band, just being able to capture lightning in a bottle like that. Like, there's that stage where you can write a song in like 10 minutes and it's one of the best songs you've ever written. And then, I don't know if you guys are like me, sometimes, 15, 20 years down the road, you're like, why is this so hard? I just want to write a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely,
I think you get into your, like,
moments.
You get into this, like, this idea of being formulaic or trying to recreate things. Like, at the beginning, you haven't created anything yet, so you're just exploring new territory.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I know you were asking earlier about, like, studio memories. I remember on Waking from the Coma, there's a screaming part. Because back then, that was a cool thing to do.
Right.
Was to have some screaming in your songs. And that's when we had Paul from Analog came in and laid down the screaming vocal to that song. And I just remember it was just kind of funny because I don't know if Presto Studios and those guys did a lot of like screaming, like hardcore bands or, things like that. So if I remember right, we basically just took like a 57, wrapped like a towel around it, and Paul was just, screaming his lungs out into it. And it was awesome.
Yeah, throw some distortion on it and good to go. It definitely has kind of like a muffled, gritty sound behind the rest of the song there. Well, hey, so you put out this record and immediately get signed to Capitol Records, and you're touring the nation the next thing we know, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly
That's
what
how it
happened.
So what really did come from the release of this record? I mean, like, would you guys say overall, you're proud of how things went with it? Were you hoping for more? I mean, you guys did have some opportunities to do some touring here and there, and definitely became more of a regional band than most bands to come out of the Omaha/Council Bluffs area.
Yeah, I mean, we put the full length out. The song on the Tooth and Nail sampler obviously got us a lot of attention. Our song Stars Between Station, I think, just organically got us a lot of attention. And we were just playing shows all the time. We just played and played and played anywhere for anybody that we could. And we just really worked our butts off because we were super proud of the record. We felt it was really good. We were proud to go out and play the songs and have fun. And I think a lot of us, for a while, were kind of chasing that, let's get signed, let's work our butts off and play as many shows as we can. And for a while there, we got to the point where we were playing right around 100 shows a year, give or take.
Which for an unsigned band is very impressive, because I mean, you guys are doing all of the work there to get those shows booked, I'm assuming. Yeah,
I booked all the shows for sure.
It was fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We got to play with a lot of, Plain White Tees, Jimmy Eat World, Dashboard Confessional. Like, we played with a lot of pretty big bands. And we were touring with, like, Puller from Tooth and Nail. But it got to the point where we were just grinding a lot. So it was fun. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, that whole period was a lot of fun. But it got to be when nothing was sort of materializing in terms of people giving us money to do another record.
Right.
I don't know what that record deal actually looks like. But, nothing was happening. So we were like, we're playing all this stuff and kind of burning ourselves out. So that's kind of where, we got to the point where it was getting kind of tiresome.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just kind of maybe segueing into your, where we were going with this is we got to the point where, I was doing master's classes for another degree, and I know John was doing something similar. We all had commitments, and Dave was getting involved more with his church. Like, it was just, we had responsibilities, and the band was becoming a grind. And I've always said, like, I was Dave was the gas and I was the brakes of things. And I sort of was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is a lot. I've got all this other commitment, real life. My wife is getting pissed that I'm gone a third of the year to do this weekend project.
Right.
So what are we doing?
I mean, that was the thing. We weren't really doing like 2 or 3 week tours. We were playing, 3, 4, 5 days at the most. 3 to 5 day runs, but consistently, like nonstop. And like Ryan said, we just really grinded for a long time. And for anybody listening, you might be thinking a long time as a couple of years. No, we were doing that for about 6 years.
Wow.
4 years. Well, it feels like that long. We put the record out in 2003, and that to 2006 is when.
It was 3 years.
Yeah, we took a break, but I mean, we were playing shows and we were grinding for a long time without really taking a break. A lot of bands would take a break, write new material, and put out another record. Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't do that. We just kind of worked our butts off so hard until finally we just had to stop. Like Ryan said, we weren't all on the same page. I was always the gas. I'm still the gas. And, some of us were getting married. We're married. And to do all of that, have relationships, and have jobs, it was pretty difficult.
So, that said, in 2006, we saw the Names Without Numbers farewell show. I was there. I left a wedding ceremony, well, not the ceremony itself, but I left a wedding reception early so I could attend the final Names Without Numbers show. And at the time, that's kind of the way it was, right? I mean, you guys had no intention of making new music together at that point, right?
No. I
Not
think
really.
my announcement from stage at the last song was, "This is the last time you guys are ever going to hear this live."
Wow.
As I was done at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. 2006. You know, we just wanted to kind of go out with a celebration, have all of our friends come and have a bunch of, of our friends' bands open up for us. And that was it.
Mm-hmm. And this was at, we should probably let folks know, this was at the Sokol Underground. Back
Correct.
before the
correct.
smoking ban, right?
Yeah.
The
Back when there
legendary.
were posters all over the wall and tar on the ceiling. It was great.
It's true.
Yeah. Place smelled like a sweat sock.
Oh yeah, it was great. But anyway, so you guys, for all intents and purposes, are done. But then in 2009, there's a reunion show, a couple of reunion shows, right?
Yeah, I think we did, I want to say 2 shows. We did a reunion, and I'm not really sure what sparked it. I probably just got bored. and
I always thought that was because you guys put out the DVD of the final show, so it was kind of like
we did do
hey,
that, didn't we?
buy this DVD.
I think
with
sometimes
the full show except for the last 2 minutes of the last song.
No, I think that was Dave's marketing. He was like, "Oh, we've got this new show. What can we sell at this new show to make some money?"
Gotcha.
So he's like, "Oh, we've got this material that we've created from our last show. Let's put that on a DVD and sell it." Which is, I still am embarrassed by that DVD.
Really? Oh, I wouldn't be.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not as embarrassed as it is. It's probably just more nostalgic for us and our friends than
Sure, yeah.
than it is for the masses.
Yeah, you probably can't buy that one on the website, right?
You can't. But if you want one, get a hold of me. I will send you one.
That's great.
For the right price.
I went to the apartment complex movie theater screening of that DVD. Man, I've been around the block, you guys.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so you guys did a reunion in 2009, and that was not, you guys didn't intend for that to be a permanent thing, right?
No.
That was just a kind of like a one and done type thing.
Yeah. Although we were recording, we were writing some stuff, and looking back at that little period in 2009, 2010, there was some good material that we should, as an aside, Dave, we should probably revisit, because I still have some of it, and it's actually not bad. But yeah, no, we didn't intend to continue doing a band at all. It was just, hey, let's do a couple shows, and that was it.
So then what happened? What was the spark that in 2009 it wasn't something you guys wanted to do necessarily, but then a couple years later you're kind of thinking about maybe we should do this again. How did that come to be?
Well, for me, it was my kids that were old. So my first child was born in 2008. Mm-hmm. And then, my second one was born in 2016. By the time she was 4, when kids get to about the age of 4, they can kind of take care of them. They're easier.
Sure.
So at that point, 2016, 2015, when we got back together, my kids were getting a lot easier. So it got to the point where I was like, well, you've got more time. We had been playing in church. So Dave had taken a director of worship at a church, and he had been asking his friends to come play. So I was like, oh, I've got a little bit of time to do this. As it kind of progressed, I had been playing in that church with Dave for a couple of years, and to play in church, you have to practice for that week. Like, you have to spend some time in the evenings getting ready, and then on Sunday kind of devote like most of your day to playing in church. So at some point we were just like, well, we've been doing this for the past couple of years, playing in this church where we've been devoting all this time, and all of us, like, all, me and Joel, the bass player, and Dave had been playing like almost every Sunday where we devoted all this time. Like, if we can devote all this time to this, why can't we, write music and kind of devote it to some, of our original stuff again? Let's do this. I mean, why not?
So what did that look like? Were you guys maybe writing songs before or after rehearsal for your church music stuff? Or like, did you guys decide to carve out some time outside of that space?
Well, I think initially, like, that's how it started. Like, oh, hey, that's a good groove. Like, we just kind of noodle on some things while we were sound checking or whatever. And I was like, hey, that's kind of fun. It would be really fun. And it kind of stirs in you like this really deep, like, oh man, I really want to like create again.
Sure.
And not just play some of the stuff that we're covering, in worship. Like, let's make our own stuff. So that's kind of, it was a little bit like before and after our practices or our rehearsals for the service, like kind of just messing around with things like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, 2009, we did those reunion shows. Then we took a break until 2016. And I specifically remember kind of like the deciding factor for me to really get this project going again was when Jimmy Eat World put out their Integrity Blues record.
Okay.
In 2016. And because they took a long break as well between records. And then all of a sudden they're back. They put a new record out. And us being just huge fans of that band, I know for me personally, when that record came out, it just really sparked something inside of me of like, you know what, let's do this. I'm sitting on some ideas. We've been kind of messing around with stuff at church. We got a little bit of extra time on our hands to maybe dedicate to this. And so for me, that was the deciding factor.
Awesome. So when, Dave, you might be able to tell me the exact date, when was Names Without Numbers officially back? Like, did you guys have a first comeback show or anything like that?
We did. I remember what year it was. 2017, maybe 2017.
Okay.
Because we played with Better and 11.
Nice.
I convinced them to do a reunion show as well. And when we got back together, we really didn't have like any plans of, hey, we're going to do this for another 10 years or, we're going to put out a brand new record. We just kind of wanted to get back together, play some songs, play all of our old songs. And we wanted to work on new material. Mm-hmm. But we really had no idea like where it was going to take us.
Sure.
And I'm pulling up a picture of the poster right now of our reunion show, and it was.
You still have that?
I keep everything. It was August 13th of 2016.
There you go, folks. Wow.
So that was our first comeback show, August 13th, 2016, at the Waiting Room in Omaha, Nebraska.
Right on.
So we didn't have any like really, really long-term plans. We just wanted to play songs and had fun, and just play a few shows here or there.
And at this point, so for that first show in August 2016, was that with your new drummer?
Yes.
You want to tell me about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so during our time off after 2009, our original drummer, longtime drummer, John Hearn, got married and moved to the Minneapolis area. And so that kind of put us in a position of needing a drummer. And, we should probably talk about Joel, our bass player. He came in towards the end of 2006 after Nick left. Joel started playing bass. And so Joel was just, we've always been friends and always hung out. But John moved away. So we're like, well, we need a drummer. And I was already jamming with with Jay, which is our current drummer now. Just in another project and also in church as well. And for me, it was just kind of like a natural progression of like, this dude is an amazing drummer. He should probably play for Names.
Yeah.
And so we did. So we asked him.
What did he think about that idea when you asked him?
Yeah, I don't know if he's so like his background is like he played for like what lowercase I and emphatic. Like he was a very like heavy rock drummer, and like Dave said, like he played with us in church. So he was one of the regular rotation when we were doing like for a couple of years. Joel and me and Dave were playing in church, and Jay was our drummer a lot of weekends. And when Dave and I were talking about getting the band together, you know, John had already moved. Our old drummer had already moved to Minneapolis a few years before that, and we were like, well, you know, I don't know if it's gonna work with, you know, John, because we'd have to email him the stuff and then he'd have to practice on his own, and I don't know how this is gonna work. So if we're gonna find a new drummer, I think this guy Jay from church is gonna be fantastic. I mean, he's the best drummer that we had ever played with. So we were like, how can we convince him to take it down a notch for us? Like,
Yeah.
like
That's funny.
He's and we still like talk to him about like, okay, you're gonna have to look at this not as like from your level. Bring it down to our level, and like just do 4 on the floor type stuff, you know. But like dumb it down a little bit, because he's all over the place with like these crazy fills, and we're like, you know, that's amazing. But it's like we're like a power pop band, so it works because you know, I don't know, we've kind of met in the middle, but he's phenomenal. And that's kind of how it all came. It was from the church and the connection that we had there.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I mean, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, we're going to be talking about it in a second, but that's one of the things that sticks out to me about the new album is I just love what he brings to the songs on the new record.
Yeah, it's you know, having Jay play the drums in this band, like Ryan was saying, he comes from definitely a heavier, you know, hard rock metal background. But that background, I think, really brings something special to the music. It's a real, you know, real subtle, you know, it's the fills that he does are a little out of the ordinary. It's not your typical, you know, rock fill. Just a real subtle hi-hat work isn't, you know, some of your normal, you know, indie rock drumming. So I love it. It's awesome. And me being a drummer as well, whenever I write a song, I already have the drums written in my head.
I can relate.
Yeah, and you as being a drummer as well. So I'll write a song, and I already know exactly how the drums are going to go. And I'll try to map it out for him, but he'll take it and then just make it 10 times better. So it's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, but you don't give him enough credit for that. I always say that, like, I'd hate to be a drummer in our band, because Dave comes to the table and he's pretty hard on the drummers we've had. They get into
I am.
some arguments, and I'm always trying to play the peacekeeper, because that all sounds fine to me.
Yeah, I don't know anything about writing a song and trying to tell the drummer what he's supposed to play. It's certainly not when he's your older brother.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy. Love you, Bill. I'm sure he'll listen to this.
Love you, Bill.
That's great.
Bill was on our list of drummers. There's really a very, very short list of drummers that we were potentially, toying with the idea of asking.
Yeah. Wait a minute, you were going to snipe him from Flight Metaphor.
Well, he could do double duty.
No,
we were
kidding,
like, well, he could do both.
That's great. Okay, so let's talk about the new album. So, in late 2019, Names Without Numbers releases their follow-up to Running Marathons, Chasing Ambulances, Silos and Smokestacks.
Yeah.
Silos and Smokestacks is not affiliated with the Silos and Smokestacks National Heritage Foundation.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because that's what comes up when you Google it.
Yeah. Mike was about to be sued because of this interview.
Oh boy.
But yeah, they actually sent us a little nice email asking us to put a little disclaimer on our website and
really? Wow.
Essentially not print any more merchandise with that name on it. And
well, at least they were charitable about, like, hey, don't, like, at least they didn't tell you to throw out everything that you already have.
No,
printed.
they were super cool, super nice about it. And we named our record Silos and Smokestacks just out of pure respect and homage to like the whole Midwest area, because that's where we really spent a lot of our time on the road, all the roads traveled. And there's a section of Iowa kind of in the Des Moines area that's actually designated Silos and Smokestacks, like national park area. And there's a sign that actually says that. And so I've always wanted to name a record that, and me and Matt Baird from Spokane had this little, basically a game going for probably the past 10 or 12 years of who's going to have a record named Silos and Smokestacks, and we win.
No, the real question I have is your next record going to have like blank and blank, because now you have set a pattern. I don't know if you guys have noticed that.
I did notice that. Yeah. There are painfully long titles of our albums.
Oh, I've seen worse.
Yeah, I think the next one maybe is like a one-word title. I don't know. Just break the mold.
Right on. Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty with the music, we talked about Indie Vision Music before. The new record is in partnership with Indie Vision. You want to tell me about that?
Yeah, so over all the years, we kept in contact with Brandon from Indie Vision Music. And when we got ready to put this record out, we wanted to partner with him because he was always good to us, always, exposed us to the right markets, to the right people. And so we just wanted to partner with him, have him release it. And it's really just a great partnership between us and Indie Vision.
That's great.
Yeah, they've done a lot to help us out, and we're really appreciative for Brandon and everything he's done with this record.
Absolutely.
Cool. Is it I don't know, is it, like you said before, is this getting you a little bit of exposure here and there in different markets, or what are they doing specifically as opposed to, releasing it on your own?
It's a little bit bigger of a splash zone, a little bit of a bigger, more eyes are looking at what he's doing than just us by ourselves. So with combined efforts, there's way more people seeing what we're doing.
He's been he does a lot of promotion for us too. Placements in online pubs, doing some PR.
Yep.
For us, so it's been a good relationship.
That's really cool. Yeah, because like I said, I knew about Indie Vision Music independently of Names Without Numbers, and I'm sure a lot of folks out there who are kind of looking in the same spaces to find music are probably stumbling on you guys as a result of that. So that's pretty cool. So tell me about the album then. Is it something you're proud of? Is there anything on the record that you're like, man, I'm so glad we finally got to do this the right way? Or are there any songs that you love from the record? I never remember the names of them, but the third track on the new album, I just love that song. And again, that's the one where Jay's drumming really sticks out to me. Just really, really cool stuff on the toms during the choruses. It kind of busts open.
That's
when you hit
Middle Ground?
Yeah, it's so good, man. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell him all the time, like the toms in that, or the drums in that song make the song. It was a so we brought in a producer for this new record, Michael King. I think that was the best decision that we made for the record, overall. Like he brought a different eye. Like you kind of go into things with your own art. You're like, oh, that's my baby. Like, I don't want to change this.
Yep.
And he kind of made us think differently. Like he would come in, like we would have, songs that we would bring to him and he's like, no, I don't like the verse, but I love the bridge. The bridge is going to be your new chorus. The chorus is going to now be your verse. And so he would like work with us to kind of mold these songs. And especially that song in particular, he had this vision, like when we brought it to him, it was a completely different song. And he kind of like, okay, no, I hear the drums doing a and that's what like Jay would take the and just do it exactly.
Translate it.
And yeah. And so that was kind of his idea for the song. And I don't know, it worked fantastically, especially on those choruses where Jay is kind of doing his thing. I agree with you. Like there were some, I overall am like super proud of the record and kind of how it came together. And I think a lot of that was attributed to, what Mike brought to the table and his like orchestration, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having Mike produce this record was definitely, like Ryan said, probably the best decision for us, because not only was Mike just a really good producer, but he's also a fan of the band. We've been really good friends with him. Me specifically, I've been really good friends with Mike for a really, really, really long time. And so not only was he just like producing the record, but he was a fan of the music. And he wanted the best for us. He had our best intentions in mind. And so he really had like a personal investment, a personal stake in this, I think, in this record. And we definitely had some interesting conversations because, there were some ideas I was really, really confident about. And Mike had to shut me down a few times. And tell me, hey, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I'm the producer and, trust me. And we did. It was hard for me personally, I know, a few times. And, but no, we're super proud of this record. And, we want people to listen to it and hear it for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's the big word there that stuck out to me is trust. If you're working with somebody who you trust, who cares about the music and really wants to see it the best it can be, I think that's probably where you were able to allow him to step into that role where, somebody else you might not want to give them control.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess one question I have is, you guys always talked about how John, your old drummer, was writing the lyrics to these songs. How is the writing process different for this record compared to Names Without Numbers 1.0?
Yeah. Names Without Numbers 2.0 is another story of me stepping in, like, reluctantly into a role that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with. Because John had, and he's a great lyricist, and he'd always done, he's very deep and insightful with his lyrics. Like, it was a high bar, and without that, again, it was none of us had done it before. I guess save for Dave, like early on in his musical career, he was writing a lot of lyrics,
right.
But, it was more or less like, okay, let's give it a whirl. So I've been doing the lyrics for I did the lyrics for our album, and I don't know, it was a lot of fun. Like, I felt like early on, like the first couple songs, I tried like to be as insightful and deep as John, and I don't know. I felt like as we started moving along with the writing process, like I opened up a little bit more, and I think those are the songs I'm most proud of, are the ones that I touched on a chord within myself. Like you try to get as personal as possible and get as vulnerable as possible. And those are the ones that I really, that still really resonate with me. For instance, the Dragonfly and the Owl, is one that I think we all kind of relate to because we all have kids.
Yeah.
That's about my daughters and for my daughters, as a sort of a love song or a lullaby to my kids, as a lasting, something for them to always take with them. And you're recording these songs is it's permanent.
Yeah.
I mean, we have these songs from 2003, right? Like that we still listen to and that still people can access. So it's a permanent record of something. Like you've created something that's going to last and stand the test of time. In a way, I mean, the recordings are there. So it was, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be something that they can always look back on and listen to and kind of relate to and hear sort of, the love that I have for them. So it was songs like that and things like the things that I was going through at the time, I think made the most poignant messages.
It's great.
Yeah.
Never been that good at saying what I mean. My silence always getting in my way. But let me tell you now before my chances slip away that you're the most precious things. Close your eyes, I'll be right here. Sweet dragonfly, and now my ear.
Yeah, like Ryan said, I think this record, I know for all of us, and me included, is lyrically, it's, in my opinion, phenomenal. It's smart, it's witty, but it's honest. It's honest, true emotions. I think that everybody can relate with, and I love it. I mean, we're really proud of the lyrics that were written, that Ryan wrote for this record. That we have a lyric page on our website. So yeah, definitely check it out. Read our lyrics.
Yeah, as a personal note, the song "Firing Squad" was especially, I don't know, meaningful to me as somebody who went through and is kind of currently still in a job transition right now, kind of sorting through some of the less pleasant aspects of life and just kind of like saying, okay, what am I doing? Why am I here? What matters? What is really important? And how do I fit in with all of that? That song has helped me process some of that stuff. So yeah. I mean, it is striking a chord, at least with me, and I'm sure with many others who are listening to this album.
Lift your head and dry your eyes. You've been through this 1,000 times. You've taken your hits with some gracefulness and get up again. It never ends. Up against the firing squad. You ask yourself if there's a God, but if not for darkness, you never notice the light. I think it's a timely song now too, with everything going on with the coronavirus and people having to. I mean, our way of life has changed so drastically in the last month or two. Like, just stay the course. Things like that. There's always going to be suffering. You're always going to have something you're dealing with. Pick yourself back up and do it gracefully and move on. It's all about moving on and doing it like. It's how you deal with the tragedies in life and how you deal with the suffering in life that kind of characterizes who you are. So it's kind of a timely song for right now. And interesting side note, as we were writing that, as we were writing this song, our working title was Corona.
Oh boy.
Yeah. You know how when you're writing a song and sometimes you have like little melodies that you just sing, like the doo-doos and the da-das.
Yep.
Some of the little, enunciations that were coming out of my mouth sounded like sipping on a Corona.
There it is.
Yeah.
And so that was the working title of the song, was Corona. So I'll come full circle now.
Well, I'm glad it's not the same anymore. Well, who knows? Maybe it would have been more downloads for you at this point if it kept that name.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, we can change that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just go into your, I don't know if you guys are using TuneCore or DistroKid or what, but
Right.
I think it can be edited.
Yeah, let's capitalize on this tragedy.
Okay, never mind. I take it back. That's funny. Man, okay. Well, hey guys. Any other? I don't want to move on too quickly from the new album. I mean, do you have any other thoughts? Anything you want to share about the recording process? I mean, that's one thing we can touch on. Is I'm assuming this one wasn't recorded to tape.
Yeah.
No, we recorded. Yeah, we definitely want to give a shout out to Scott Gata. He was the recording engineer kind of behind this record. We recorded most of the band, like the guitar, bass, drums, all at his. He has a studio in his house. Like we were talking about earlier, you don't really need a big fancy studio anymore. You just need somebody who has the tools and a really good ear. And so Scott Gata recorded this record. Mike King produced it. Did a lot of the keys. Justin Wance did a lot of the key work on it. And it was mixed and mastered by those guys, along with J.R. McNeely as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you're a local band in Omaha looking for a studio, I would hit up Mr. Scott Gata.
Yes.
He is phenomenal at engineering sounds.
Yeah, and if you need him to play something on your record, you don't have a xylophone player, or you don't have an accordion player, or a guitar player, or a bass player, or a keyboard player. He can play everything, which is awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So he can definitely fill out your record by doing whatever needs to happen.
He's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Well, I'll keep that in mind. I'm hopefully going to be recording some solo material here in the next year and a half. So maybe he's somebody I'll talk to.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. But yeah, we're just super glad, that we're back. We're playing shows. So hopefully once the our current situations here in the world turn around, we'll be playing some shows again. And I know that as a band, we're already kind of throwing around the idea of recording some more.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a constant cycle, right? You have to be moving all the time.
Yeah, I mean, before we put out this full length, I mean, we're probably sitting on, I don't know, close to 9 songs maybe. Unfinished songs right now. So we're ready to go back in and do an EP for sure.
That's cool.
Well, you bring in some of those, like I was saying, back in 2009, 2010, whenever it was, we had some pretty good songs back then too. So we've got maybe a box set.
That's great.
The best of will be our next record. The best of.
Throw all the obscurities on there with it. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation about Names Without Numbers. Where can people find your music? Where can people connect with you online?
You can always check us out at our website, nameswithoutnumbers.com. And we're also on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Instagram, Facebook. And our handle name on pretty much all of those sites is Names Without Numbers.
Or when this is all over, come check us out live and come
Yes.
hang out with us. Don't stand too close. Stand 6 feet away from us. But we love to talk to people after shows and make that connection with people. So come see us.
Yeah, and we still plan on playing all around the Midwest. So definitely come see us when we're in your town.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you at one of those shows, I'm sure.
Yeah, can't wait.
Thank you.
That's it for this month's episode of Indie Underdogs. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on one of the support links at indieunderdogs.com. There's a link to my Bandcamp page, or if you just want to make a direct contribution, you can follow the PayPal link. You can also support the show by following Indie Underdogs on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Indie Underdogs. Thanks again to Dave and Ryan for joining me on the podcast this month. Don't forget to visit nameswithoutnumbers.com so you can buy a hoodie and a physical copy of Silos and Smokestacks, because physical media is still better than digital. But you can also go to nameswithoutnumbers.bandcamp.com if you want to buy the album digitally. It's also available everywhere streaming, so you can do that too. And speaking of Silos and Smokestacks, the band gave me permission to share one of their songs in full at the end of the episode here. So, for your listening pleasure, here's the song Firing Squad. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next month. God bless.
Haven't slept since last week Wednesday. I'm not okay. My back's all messed up, I can't walk, and my voice is gone, so I can't talk. But anyway, my life is in decline. Left your head and dry your eyes. You've been through this 1,000 graceful